What are you gonna do about this baby?
Just when you think you got a handle on things. Hey, what?
A woman named Profidia is a member of a left-wing revolutionary group known as French 75. She meets her group to plan the rescue of immigrants held at a detention camp on the U.S.-Mexico border. There, Profidia reminds a fellow member, Pat, of his role to create a diversion by blowing something up. As the sun sets, the members sneak into the immigrant detention center. One group captures the soldiers, while the other helps the immigrants. Profidia goes to Commanding Officer Lockjaw's room. She first introduces her group's mission and its goal to humiliate him. She forces him to get hard. Lockjaw is forced to tense up below the waist. She then binds his hands and takes him outside. Others are helping the immigrants escape by truck. Pat starts the fireworks. Profidia tells Lockjaw that they are declaring war on them and puts him with the other captured soldiers. They flee the area, energized by their successful mission. Profidia and Pat start to kiss each other to celebrate their success. When they return, they become even more intimate. Their group then blows up politicians' offices, banks, and power grids. During this time, Profidia and Pat begin a more intimate relationship. After that night, Lockjaw starts obsessing over Profidia. He keeps an eye on her and gets pissed when he sees her with Pat. One day, while the group is trying to plant a bomb, Lockjaw captures Profidia, but he tells her she can keep blowing things up as long as she returns his gun and hat and meets him at a motel. Later that day, Profidia meets with him, and they sleep together. After a few days, Profidia becomes pregnant, but she keeps living the same way, which worries Pat. After the baby is born, Profidia starts feeling neglected, and Pat also wants them to settle down to raise a family, but she refuses and keeps up her revolutionary work. One day, Lockjaw approaches Pat at the supermarket and asks about his child. Pat says they have a baby girl named Charlene. Lockjaw says it sounds like a black girl's name, adds that he likes black girls, and walks off, leaving Pat terrified. One day, the group is robbing a bank, but when the guard fights back, Profidia shoots him. They all jump into cars to escape. A long chase follows, and Profidia's car crashes, forcing them to run on foot. But the police catch up and arrest her. While in custody, Profidia is approached by Lockjaw, who tells her he can free her if she gives information on the group's key members. After her arrest, Pat goes on the run, and a fellow member, Howard, gives him a device. He explains that when the device is closed, it will play a tune, meaning they can fully trust whoever holds it. He also gives an envelope with coded language for communication and tells him to burn it after memorizing it. Pat is ready to leave with his daughter. They will hide in the sanctuary city of Bacton Cross. Profidia leaks information about the group members, and she is placed in the Witness Protection Program. Lockjaw begins hunting down her comrades and even takes many of them out. Lockjaw is awarded for taking down the French 75 group. He goes to meet Profidia but finds she has escaped. 16 years later, Pat's daughter has grown up and now lives as Willa Ferguson. She is learning karate from Sensei Sergio. Pat is now living as Bob Ferguson. Bob has become a stoner and is a bit paranoid about everything. Lockjaw has risen in his field, and one day he is invited to a white supremacist group called the Christmas Adventure Club. He meets with them and they express suspicion about his past. They say they will run a background check and cancel his membership if they find anything irregular. They ask if he is engaged in any interracial relationships and many other questions, all of which he denies. Howard is now living off-grid and secretly running the French 75 group. One day, Avanti, a bounty hunter, captures him and takes him away. A group of kids sees this, goes to his room, and releases the message that Howard has been taken. Avanti takes him to a military facility. Howard is interrogated about the whereabouts of baby Charlene, but when he refuses to talk, they threaten his sister's life. He is forced to reveal the information, which they pass on to Lockjaw. Lockjaw prepares his men and says they will go to Bacton Cross to arrest two high-value targets, Bob and Willa Ferguson. They arrive in the city and are given an extra mission to raid a drug distribution center as cover for their operation. Willa is frustrated with her father because of his constant smoking and paranoia. She is going to her school dance, and Bob acts a bit rude to her friends. They leave for the dance. In the school washroom, her device suddenly starts playing its tune. A fellow French 75 member, Deandra, appears. She gives the coded message, and after Willa replies correctly, she tells her there's an SOS and they need to leave immediately. She knew Willa's father and mother, so Willa can trust her completely. They flee the school as the immigration control raids the building. soldiers line up the kids, looking for Willa. Bob is getting high at home. When he gets a call, they speak in code and wait for his reply, but he's too high to remember it. Still, he forces himself to think and recalls the code. In the coded message, they tell him Howard has been captured and Lockjaw is coming to their city. They have already secured Willa and will meet him at the rendezvous point, but Bob can't remember the location. Before he can ask, the call cuts off. He tries to calm down and think of a way out. Lockjaw and his soldiers burst into his house. While searching, they find a tunnel. Fearing traps, they throw smoke grenades inside. Bob escapes before the smoke spreads. He comes out the other end deep in the jungle. He gets out of there and finds a washroom to rinse his eyes. His calling device isn't charged, so he heads to the road and uses a payphone. He calls the underground French 75 members. He asks them about the rendezvous point, but they instead ask him for the coded time Bob can't remember the answer. He tries to explain his situation, but the man refuses to give any info without the code. Meanwhile, ICE agents are raiding the entire town. Bob runs through the chaos and arrives at Sergio's office searching for a gun. Sergio, the leader of the city's undocumented community, tells him they need to leave and promises to get him a weapon. In the car, Bob tells him everything. Sergio then asks why he doesn't call Willa, but Bob says she doesn't have a phone. It's too risky. Sergio reveals she actually does have a secret phone. Meanwhile, agents interrogate kids about Willa, but none of them knows anything. When asked if she has a phone, the kids insist she doesn't because her father is paranoid. Deandra asks Willa if she knows Lockjaw. She says yes. Her father told her Lockjaw is the one who killed her mother. The city erupts into protests against ICE. A group of skaters approaches Sergio's car, and he explains their next move. He takes Bob to his shop to look for a phone charger while explaining their next move. They then visit the undocumented people they've been hiding and tell them it's time to leave. Sergio has arranged a safe escape route. Sergio brings Bob into his house and introduces him to everyone. Bob goes into a room, charges his phone, and calls the French 75 again to ask for the rendezvous point. But he gets the same response, "What time is it?" and still can't remember the code, leading to an argument. Meanwhile, Sergio prepares the escape, opens an underground tunnel, and moves the families through it. ICE agents arrive at the shop and a kid runs when he sees them. The officers break down the door. Frustrated, Bob uses another code he remembers to contact the supervisor. The supervisor recognizes him and tests him with a personal question, which Bob answers correctly. The supervisor finally tells him the rendezvous point, Sister of Brave Beaver, and instructs someone to give Bob the exact location. At that moment, ICE agents burst into the shop. The man tells Bob the rendezvous location and apologizes. Bob, still annoyed, demands the answer to the question, "What time is it?" The man replies, "Time doesn't exist, and yet it controls us anyway." Hearing this, Bob gets even more irritated. Sergio rushes in, warning that the agents are closing in. He leads Bob to the corridor, instructs his students to escort him to a safe spot, and hands him a gun. Bob panics, but Sergio urges him to stay brave. Sergio and the others escape through the tunnel while the agents break in. Bob is taken to the rooftop by the students. At school, agents interrogate the students, but learn nothing until one finally breaks and reveals that Willa has a secret phone. In the car, Willa's phone rings and Deandra angrily tells her to hand it over. Willa throws it out the window. Lockjaw is immediately notified of the phone's last location. Meanwhile, Bob is being rushed across the rooftops by the students, but he slips while jumping and falls. He gets up and tries to run, only to be chased by police who mistake him for a protester. The students notify Sergio that Bob has been captured, though at least they still have his gun. Deandra and Willa reach the Sisters of Brave Beavers. Deandra reveals that Willa is Profidia's daughter and asks for protection. The head nun, Rochelle, is shocked to see Willa. She tells her that Profidia was a traitor, so they must keep a close watch on her. A nun then guides Willa to her room. Meanwhile, Tim Smith from the Christmas Adventure Club meets with the other members. Virgil informs him that there's a problem, and they need his help. They recently decided to add Lockjaw as a new member, but another member, Bill, reveals a problem. Their background check shows Lockjaw once had a child with a black woman. They also uncover a classified file 15 years ago. French 75 member Jungle Pussy told an officer this exact story. They can't confirm the story because the member who reported it is long dead, but recently Lockjaw hired a bounty hunter to track down former French 75 member Howard, who now helps immigrants cross the border and find work in their sanctuary city. Lockjaw then leads his task force into the city and raids a chicken farm, suspecting illegal activity there. The farm belongs to one of their members, and Lockjaw wants the worker returned. He also raids the local area, throwing the whole city into chaos. Tim realizes Lockjaw is searching for his mixed-race child. When he asks about the mother, they show him Perfidia's file and explain that Lockjaw was the officer who arrested her. She later entered witness protection but eventually escaped. She is now likely in Cuba or Algeria. Roy, their leader, tells Tim that he must clean up the situation, and Tim understands what he has to do before leaving. Willa trains with the nuns, still upset after learning her mother's secret. She asks Deandra if her mother was really a rat, and Deandra confirms it. Meanwhile, Bob is in police custody pretending to be a junkie. During screening, he gives them a fake name, but the nurse suddenly calls him Bob and asks if he's diabetic and whether he's taken his insulin. Bob understands and says no. The nurse tells the officer that he needs to be taken to the ER. In the hospital, a nurse comes and goes close to him. She frees him and tells him the path from which he can escape. After she leaves, Bob escapes from there, and coming down, he sees Sergio waiting for him. He tells him that they need to go to the location of the Sisters of Brave Beaver. Lockjaw is interrogating a man at a near-bay road shop. The man says he saw a van going towards the hills with a black girl. He asks what's in those hills. The man says there lives a group of nuns who grow weed. Lockjaw finds this absurd. Deandra and Willa are sitting when they hear a sound, and Deandra goes to check. Suddenly, the agents burst in and arrest Willa. They take her to Lockjaw, and she sees all the nuns being detained. They place her in front of Lockjaw, and he orders everyone to leave them alone. He asks her to step closer and examines her carefully. He then sits her down and pulls out a DNA testing kit. He collects a DNA sample from her mouth and then takes one from himself. He loads both samples into the machine and prepares the test. He tells her that if the results don't match, she's free to go, but if they do, they've got a problem. In another room, an agent is interrogating Deandra about Pat's location, but she says she doesn't know. Willa asks Lockjaw if he forced her mother or loved her. Lockjaw asks if she thinks he is her father. She says it doesn't matter what the results are. She already has a father, and it's not him. He grabs her and says she should wear more makeup to look presentable. They get into an argument, and he calls her a smart mouth just like her mother. He checks the result and sees a straight line indicating it's positive. He then gathers all his things and prepares to leave. Bob and Sergio are in a car when a cop starts following them and orders them to stop. He tells Bob that he needs to jump from the car. Bob sits by the window to jump, but he's terrified. Sergio swerves the car and Bob falls out. He hides behind a mound of dirt as a cop car passes by. He then hotwires a car and heads toward the hills. He takes an elevated position to watch the place from a distance. Lockjaw moves in to grab Willa, and she tries to run, but he catches her and forcefully takes her away. Bob watches the agent's movements from afar with a sniper rifle. He sees Lockjaw putting Willa into a car. He tries to shoot Lockjaw but misses, and Lockjaw gets in the car and leaves. The soldiers get into position and fire toward Bob's location. He avoids the bullets and gets back in the car and leaves. He is trying to follow Lockjaw's car. In the car, Lockjaw says that her mother was a beautiful witch who fought for her freedom, but Willa keeps telling that she was a rat. He angrily tries to hit her, but stops and says he should respect her father and mother. He then takes her to Avanti the bounty hunter. He tells him that he needs to get rid of her. She is a bad kid mixed up with a cartel, and nobody will miss her if she goes missing. But Avanti says he doesn't do kids, and despite his offer to double the money, he refuses. So he instructs him to take her to a militia group, and he agrees. He then takes her out, but she is trying to escape, and he forcefully pushes her into his car. Bob has lost the car and asks for directions from some local men, and they show him the way. Sergio is captured by the cops pretending to be drunk. When they ask him what he threw from the car, he says it was trash. Willa is trying to break down the door. Avanti asks if someone is going to look for her. She says yes, and when they find her, they are going to mess him up. Lockjaw is driving when a car comes beside him and asks him to roll down the window. Avanti brings Willa to the militia and says it's from Lockjaw. He binds her to the chair and gives the key to the caretaker. He calls someone to come. Tim makes sure that Lockjaw is down and leaves. Bob, still searching for the car, finally finds it crashed. Willa sees two men arriving on a bike and preparing a boat. They go inside the building while Avanti watches them from his car. He steps out with a gun, grabs the key, frees Willa, and immediately shoots the caretaker. Then he heads inside to deal with the others. Willa runs and hides behind a car. She slips into it to escape, but she can't find the key. Bob inspects Lockjaw's wrecked car but doesn't spot Willa anywhere. He pulls out his device and shouts the code message, calling for her to reveal herself. When no one responds, he realizes she isn't there and returns to his car. Willa grabs Avanti's gun and heads toward the house. Inside, she sees everyone is dead. She takes the key from Avanti. She starts the car and flees. While driving, she notices a car following her. It's Tim catching up. She drives up an uphill road and stops in a blind spot. She gets out and hides beside the road, aiming the gun. As Tim drives uphill, he crashes into her car. Willa points the gun at the door. Tim steps out and she screams the coded message. But Tim is confused and says, "What?" Willa shoots him. A few minutes later, Bob arrives. He takes out the machine and asks for Willa, but she's still aiming the gun and demands the coded message. Bob answers her and says he is her father. They embrace each other and Bob leaves with his daughter. Surprisingly, Lockjaw is still alive and bloodied, walking on the street. Sometime later, he meets with the Christmas Adventure Club. They ask about Profidia and whether he was involved with her in any way. Lockjaw, now with a disfigured face, says he faced many enemies in battle and once he was compromised. A woman dragged him and engaged with him. He believes the woman was a sperm stealer. Virgil asks why they would do that. He says he thinks they probably desire his powerful mind and body. Lockjaw has now become a member of the Christmas Adventure Club. One of the members shows him to his office. After he leaves, Lockjaw proudly takes a seat there. Soon he notices a gas is coming from upstairs. He then falls asleep for the rest of his life. Some guys in hazmat suits come and take away his body and cremate it. Bob tells his daughter that her mother has sent her some letters, but he didn't share it with her as he was trying to protect her. But now he feels it's time and gives her the letter. She reads it, and her mother says she doesn't know how they came to this place, asking if she is fine or not. She says she now feels weak. She tried to change the world but failed, but maybe she will make the world a right place, and when the time comes, they will meet again. After reading, she goes and hugs her father. Bob has a phone now, and Willa is teaching him how to use it. Suddenly, a radio call comes that there is a protest in Oakland, and with her father's blessing, she departs to join in. And that is the end of the story. A wild ride from start to finish. Tragic, bizarre, and just a little bit insane. If you enjoyed this recap, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more twisted adventures.